And I hope we all had a blessed week. So we can actually start our lesson with prayer. Let us pray. Our kind and loving God, we come before your throne of grace at this hour, thanking you, dear Lord, for all your goodness unto us, for dying for our sins, for the truths which you are opening unto us. How we pray, dear Lord, that you may forgive us for hardening our hearts, even though you keep on calling us to this message which is liberating, calling us to your kingdom where we can find true rest, where we can find true love. Forgive us for fighting these truths that you have been opening unto us. We pray at this hour as we are entering into your study that you may be with us, you may give us understanding, and may you continue to teach us, dear Lord, that we may be able to love your truth and spirit. In Jesus' name, amen. Happy Sabbath, everyone. I hope we are all doing well. I don't know if we managed to go through the article which was shared on Zoom group recently. Did we manage to go through it? Hello? Hello? I hope you can hear me. Am I audible enough?
Hi, Jean.
Yes.
Yes, no, we can hear you.
Yes.
Not really.
Okay. So I just want to encourage each and every one of us to just make time, because the effort that is being put on these articles is so beneficial to us, and for it to be posted and then we just ignore, we are missing out a lot. So I want us to just look at one of the things that were one of the topics that were touched on this article, and then we can help each other, you know, if there are any areas where we didn't really understand, right? So I'm going to look at, I know I've touched it, and also I'm not sure if Erica touched on it, but it's just a repeat. It's the one on, yeah, she also did it in this sorry, just a second. Yeah, it's the last.
Is it the newsletter that which you are referring to, or the
Yes.
article? Oh, no, I thought you were speaking about an article. Okay, no problem. I thought I did not know you're speaking about the
Is
newsletter.
it not the same thing like that newsletter which is posted after a month or so?
I know in my mind I'm thinking articles, I'm thinking like the ones that Elder just normally send. So sorry about that.
Oh, okay. No, I was talking about this one which was sent, which is being done with the SA group.
Okay, no, fine. It's fine. Thank you.
Mm,
That one it's fine.
okay. So we're going to look at I know many people, or not many as such, but there are some people who are getting tired of hearing about the issues of equality, or let me say the issues of sexism. But if you're just looking at what is happening around the world, you're going to see that it's really necessary. What's happening in the world, or even what's happening in the movement, we are going to see that it's necessary that people be educated on these things. That way, we know some Levites are coming or are going to come. They need this information. And for us to be able to teach all these things, we really need to be ready. We really need to know our story. We really need to know what we believe in, and be able even to stand up for those who are suffering different kinds of abuses. And without knowledge, we are nothing. Without embracing or treasuring these truths that the Lord has opened unto us, we are failing the test. So fighting this message, we are failing the test. If only we could come to a point where we view this message or accept it or live according to what it's saying, we are going to see that we experience, like we have a good experience, or will actually be liberated in many ways. So I know I've addressed this study before, but I'm just repeating in case some missed it. But I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. Just that I'm doing it, I also want to connect it with something when we are doing the youth talk. So we are going to page 13 of that newsletter, which was done by Erica Ballas. It's called Anatomy of Abuse by Erica Ballas. It's called Anatomy of Abuse. Okay. So it begins by touching on the issue of rape, sexual assault, domestic violence, and spousal rape. So we have to understand the anatomy of these 4 violent acts. So these are what? Violent acts: rape, sexual assault, domestic violence, and spousal rape. It is not sexual action per se, but okay. It is not sexual action per se, but of dominance or control, and the same goes for domestic abuse and spousal rape. So when we look at this, if we go to all the studies that have been done about like domestic violence or about any abuse that you may think of, and especially the ones to do with sexism or any form of abuse, you are going to see that you can't do away with the issue of control or power. These things are there. And for one to end up overpowering or end up controlling the other party, we are looking at it as abuse. And when we are looking at equality, we know that no one is supposed to be above anyone. We are all what? Equal. So what is sexual assault? So the term sexual assault refers to sexual conduct or behavior that occurs without explicit consent of the victim. So sexual assault refers to what? Sexual conduct or behavior where there is no agreement. That is sexual assault. When the parties are not in agreement, that is an assault. Some forms of sexual assault include attempted rape, fondling or unwanted sexual touching, forcing a victim to perform sexual acts such as oral sex or penetrating the perpetrator's body. Penetration of the victim's body, also known as rape. So attempted rape is sexual assault. Fondling or unwanted sexual touching. When you find doing this and someone is not in agreement with that, or someone is underage, or this can also be done even to someone who might be sick mentally, that they don't realize that this is being done to them. It's all falls under sexual assault. Forcing a victim to perform sexual acts as oral sex or penetration and perpetrator's body. All these things, penetration of the victim's body, also known as rape. So all these are types of sexual act. What is force? Force doesn't always refer to physical pressure. Did you hear that? So when we have a victim of abuse there, when they are suffering abuse, we have actually learned that with abuse, there is physical abuse, there is sexual abuse, there is emotional abuse, there is economic abuse, there is a lot of abuses. And the one which is because some might see abuse is only when you can physically see force upon someone. But when this force is not visible, it can also be like the worst. So force doesn't always refer to physical pressure. Perpetrators may use emotional coercion, may use psychological force or manipulation to coerce a victim into non-consensual sex. So this we have also touched it, if you remember, that one ends up sometimes agreeing into indulging in this act because of that pressure that they are being given. They are being manipulated. There is this emotional force that is just being put on them, that they end up what? Agreeing. So at the end of the day, some people fall victims because it's been manipulated, it's been sort of sugar coated, that they end up into that act. But what we have learned is at the end of that act, you're going to find out that one is not happy about what has been done to them. They end up feeling dirty. They end up feeling like they have brought it upon themselves. But manipulation and all this emotional, the use of emotions and psychological force would have been used upon them. So all this, as we are learning, we need to keep to have spiritual discernment. We need to be able to see these things if they are being done to anyone, any form of abuse, especially sexual abuse. We need to be able to pick these things through our conversations. Sometimes, you can easily tell where, or let me say, you are supposed to tell where abuse is happening. Because what makes us sometimes fail to see abuse, it's because sometimes it's either we are behind on the truths that have been opening up, or we are not into it. We are not seeing the seriousness of what the Lord has opened up unto us. Because the majority of people, some are suffering abuse knowingly, some unknowingly, and some are what they call love. They're not even realizing that it's also what? Abuse. So with all that, without realizing that you are being abused, force through manipulation or through psychological, action, like you can be forced into acts which are abusive. So all this we need to be aware of our surroundings, and just have knowledge about all these things so that we can actually help those who might be in danger or who are being abused. Then she touched on victim blaming. So victim blaming, a woman is to blame if she's raped or abused in any form. The first question is asked, why are you walking around at night? Did you wear sexy clothes? How many drinks did you have? Did he misunderstood you because you might have been too friendly with him? So with victim blame, we've touched on this one quite a lot. But the fact that you might still see abusers trying to defend themselves and still trying to justify what they have done, you can tell that people are not really understanding. So many at times abusers get away with abuse because they know how to manipulate the situation. And victims, for example, we can just give an example of the case of Debbie and what's her name? Johnny Depp and what's the name of the?
Amber Heard.
Yes, thank you. We can give that example that Amber Heard is a victim, and the moment she comes out to say this is what has been done to me, I'm sure you saw how her case was mishandled and how many people are coming out, like, saying all sorts of horrible things because she had decided to come out. So they are blamed for some of the things that happened. There's this thing of they caused victims are the ones who had, a victim is the one who made an abuser act that way. It's always like that. For someone who doesn't want to accept who is an abuser that he was wrong, he did this and it is wrong, they always find ways to blame who? The victim. And all this, we need also to be wise enough to pick when they search that now this person is actually manipulating the whole situation. They are actually trying to, justify themselves. And we have learned that when a victim's case has been mishandled, they will always live with guilty. They will always live with blaming themselves, like thinking that they deserve it. They are the ones. If they had not done 1, 2, or 3, this could not have happened to them. But it's only when a victim is surrounded with people who are wise, that indeed they will be able to tell that here I've been abused, here I'm not wrong. And what they need is to be believed when they come out to say, what has been done to them. Because right now we are seeing many victims not coming out just because they fear to be judged, just because of how they will be called names and all that. So there is need for us to be able to stand up with those who are being victimized. And where you have been abusing or where you have abused, it's high time we accept where we are going wrong and work on it, work on ourselves so that we stop those abuses and be pure before God. And then it's saying, so if you just read, you see all these things of some of the questions that are asked to the victims. And it's many times that you see a victim being asked like unnecessary questions, which make them doubt themselves. So there's also need to have wisdom on how we handle victims of abuse, because it actually helps them to heal. If their cases are not handled well, they will live with a wound that is not visible. They will be hurting the most, but one might not see that they are actually hurting. But once a case of abuse, can be sexual abuse like the one which I'm learning about now, when it's dealt with in a proper way, one will find closure. We have seen how victims of abuse have been coming out from the Catholic Church, who are very old, like very, very old, still talking about what has been done to them when they were little, when they were below 10 years. Find someone who is 70 something, still talking of how much they're still hurting. So whenever justice is not done, you are going to find that the victim suffers the most. The victim can take that pain to the grave. So it's always wise to just stand up for those who are being victimized or those who have suffered abuse, and where they are struggling on coming out of abuse, we need to just play our role, help as much as we can so that they can be liberated. Because when one is in an abusive situation, it's not different from someone who is in prison. We know, we have learned about the issues of slavery or the issue of racism, where we just let's say we bring the example of the time in America where slaves were taken as captive and they are being used in the farms and all that, and they have no freedom to do anything. They have to just be answering to their master. Nothing good was coming out of them. They were always beaten and all that. And there was emotional, physical, psychological abuses, all that. So now when we're looking at someone who is being sexually abused, we just need to think of how someone is in prison, because when you're in prison, you don't have freedom. How someone is in prison suffers, or how someone who has been under the yoke of slavery has suffered. So all that will help us to understand how sexism or how bad being or how terrible it is being in an abusive situation. So it shame might it be that he did not realize or understand what he was doing? Might it be that you were talking back at him? Were you rebellious against his authority? So all this also, like I said before, for a victim, for an abuser, they come up with all these things that the victim end up confused. That there are things, because right now it's like this one where it's mentioning about might it be that you were talking back at him. Sometimes what's viewed as talking back at him, it's not talking back at him, but it is like sometimes you might be trying to knock some sense in his head, because the moment sometimes when you try to stand up for yourself, you are looked as you're arrogant, you're rebellious, you're all these ugly names that can be called for someone who is just trying to stand up for themselves. Looking at, we know when we touched on the issues of feminism, we have liberal, we have radical, we have got cultural. We have realized how much the radical feminists are attacked out there, how they are called names. It's not like what they are standing for is wrong or they are doing it in a wrong way, because it's radical, because it's touching the whole, it's not leaving anything. It might be a situation where a victim is just trying to speak out to say, this is what you are doing. And at the end, you're gonna see all these abuses coming, like this has been done to you because say that you talk back to them, you deserved it, or you disrespect them, or all those things, or you are rebellious against his authority, or comments like this: you deserve it, you are cheap, you have no right to be there so late, all these things about victim blaming. you can just go through them on your own. So we're also going to spousal rape. If you still remember, we also touched it. Repetition deepens the emotion, the impression. The more we repeat, the more these things are going to sink, the more we are going to really look at our behaviors and work on changing where we are failing. We also touching on spousal rape. Do not think that man cannot rape his wife. Ne? So do not think that doesn't exist. It exists. Many women are being raped. Every time they are together, it is done with consent. If she says no and you persist, then it is rape. So in a situation where the partner, usually it's men, they want, and you are saying no, you force yourself on her, you force her into it. It might be through manipulation that we've just spoken about a few minutes ago, or it might be through emotional force or psychological force, or that there is no consent, there is no agreement. There no must be taken as it is. And also there is need to have wisdom. That one, because they've been manipulated or forced into this situation, they might say yes, but you need to be wise enough also as a partner to see that she's just saying yes, but she's not into it, she's not ready, she doesn't want to do it. So you also have to be able to pick all that, because sometimes one ends up just agreeing for the sake of trying to keep peace in the house. But we need to know that that is what it's actually rape. If she says no and you persist, it is rape. If she says yes just because you kept on pressuring her, it's rape. If you blackmail her emotionally or in any other way, then it is rape. If he sees that she is not interested but he keep pushing, then it is rape. Spousal rape and intimate partner sexual violence affect people across gender, race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status. A person of any gender can experience and perpetrate sexual violence. So we know this issue of spousal rape, it can happen to anyone. Some women also might rape men, or some men might rape another man, or some women might rape also another woman. And all that is not acceptable. And yes.
Can we comment?
Oh, yes, you can.
I just wanted to add to the issue of marital or spousal abuse. That is, it is a very broad subject that even includes some behaviors that we consider to be perfectly normal. Isn't it? We are in learning. So, and God is trying to change our minds, because we have culturally believed in the fact that women are objects for the pleasure of men. So there are many behaviors that can constitute abuse that we may not even think are not good behavior. So I wanted to read out a list just to add to that. Number one, if a partner insists that their spouse should dress in a certain way, that is abuse. And it doesn't mean that force. When we're talking about abuse of people, sexual abuse of people, we're not talking about grabbing someone and using violent force only. we can use more subtle methods. For example, and it's not always the case that a man asks for sex and the woman says no. No, it doesn't always play out like that. In a marriage situation, it plays out this way. A man wants what he wants. The woman is supposed to give and she doesn't. And she makes it difficult for him. He starts to shut her out, not talking to her, not treating her nicely, not giving her any regard. But the day she gives into his advances, he treats her nicely, he buys her flowers, he treats her like a queen. Or when they insist that someone should dress in a certain way. The minute someone has to force another to dress in a certain way, it's already taking away the freedom of one person. When people do not appreciate their partners because they have not dressed a certain way, that's putting pressure on the victim to say, I will not treat you nicely unless you dress this way and that way. Number two, when a person is called vulgar words by using words that are not appropriate, criticizing them in a sexual manner, forcing or manipulating a person into sex, because some women know that if they don't service their husband will be not nice to them. So they are actually, even without opening their mouths to say or ask, they're already manipulating the situation, creating an environment where the woman can read between the lines, knows the signs, what they mean, and that she needs now to act in this way or that way. Or the other activity is engaging in sexual activities with someone who is sleeping or is intoxicated. So we know that date rape happens a lot when women get drunk and then the men have sexual relationships with them because they are mentally not able to make decisions for themselves, or when they are sick, someone who's sleeping, someone who's intoxicated, or someone who's sick. Person is not supposed to engage in sexual activities with someone who's sleeping, someone who's sick, someone who's intoxicated. Or forcing someone to do sexual things that they do not want to do. Or forcibly holding them down or hurting them with objects, choking, restraining or physically hurting during the act, or involving other people in the sexual activities, forcing a person to watch or inappropriate sexual material. And the other one, very critical, refusing to practice safe sex. When someone refuses to use contraception, condoms, things like that. Or preventing someone from using birth control. Or making decisions about pregnancy. So all these are subtle forms of spouse sexual abuse that we need to consider, and some of them that as I'm reading out in the list, I think many of us can identify some of these forms of sexual abuse that we normally don't take seriously. We don't even think that they are wrong. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dee. Thank you. Is there anyone who wants to add something?
Now she has said it all.
All right. Thank you, Dee. Yes. So It's natural to have difficult time facing the thought that your spouse is capable of rape. It's natural to have a difficult time facing the thought that what spouse is capable of rape. You know, in the past, you will not accept that, you know, your partner or your spouse can rape you. But through this message that has opened up, which is opening our eyes, which is like enlightening, we are able to understand, like, oh, like this list which Doreen has just given, we can see these forms of rape. So we really thank the Lord for that. So this adds to the intense emotions you might already be experiencing associated with the sexual assault itself. It's also natural and not uncommon to wonder why it happened. It's also natural and not uncommon to wonder why it happened. The answer to this question may vary, but one aspect always remains. Rape isn't your fault. There is nothing you did or didn't do that justifies or explains spousal rape or sexual assault. It's all on the perpetrator. So it's so sad, to be honest, you know, when it comes to these issues of rape, this, as much as we are touching on spousal rape, there are also cases of rape which are being done to, like, any women out there. And some, they don't understand that it's not their fault. There is really a need to be a shift on men's mind, especially. That, because many a times if men rape a woman, they come up with all this list of things of they caused it. And at the end, a victim thinks it's their fault. But rape is not a victim's fault. And justice needs to be done when it comes to such cases. So rape is about dominance and power over someone. There's the issue of dominance and power over someone. Shana Castle, a sex and trauma therapist in California, says, while seemingly sexual in nature, it's not about sex, even inside a relationship or marriage. Rather, it's about a partner believing they have the right to sex. It is dominance over another human being. It is all about control. So this therapist is saying, you know, it's about this partner or this abuser believing that they have the right to sex. So anytime they want sex, they need to just get it. Anytime they just need to be serviced, they just need to get service. You know, it can be from the partner. Sometimes you find also someone going out even to look for sex. It can be other women out there, or they can even do it in that home setup where they can abuse any young girl in the house. It can be also abusing even small boys, you know, such happens a lot. So this rape, there is this spousal rape, there is also other rapes that can happen. So for one to believe that anytime they want sex, they must have it, it leads to all this thing of believing that it's their right. And that is not expected from people who are in this movement. Or yeah, it's actually not allowed. We don't encourage such. It is dominance over another human being. It is about control. So because of the trauma the victim went through, or how the abuser manipulated the victim will make excuses for what the abuser did. Have you ever seen or heard of people who stand up? They've been victimized or they've been abused, but you still find them justifying what has been done to them by the abuser, or standing up for the abuser. There are many cases like that. You know, sometimes when you are a victim, you have been damaged. And sometimes to really think straight, you need an army of people who really understand what has been done to you. If you don't have such around you, you might live a life of blaming yourself, a life of justifying what has been done to you. But thank God, like this message has been opening our eyes to see, to be able to pick that this is sexism, this is abuse, this is not supposed to be done to me. The moment you feel that it's not fair, you are not in agreement with it, and you are forced into it, being able to see all that, it's actually a blessing. So say because of the trauma the victim went through. Yes.
I just want to ask a question, since while we are speaking about this, and the children also getting to be abused because of the man is the one who's dominating and in control. How can one be able to report such a case to the police without the consent of the parents? Because there was a case back when I was in Rustenburg. There was this guy who was actually married to this other sister. So now this lady, she has 4 kids, and the eldest one was a girl. And this girl, this first, I think it's the second born, was actually being abused by this guy, which he actually married. And he was actually raping this child. But the problem is the woman, the woman or the lady did not want to report the case. She knew about what was actually happening to the daughter, and she did not want to report the case. The reasons were because of she's financially dependent on this guy, and the family would take care otherwise. You see that? So when as you hear that story, report such a case, may you please help me on that question? I was battling with it from back then. Even now, I would like to know, can I be able to go to the police and report it? And if so, what can you see? But then I also, okay, not reporting it. Are you, is it, how much disadvantage are you putting on that girl that you know? So yeah, that's the question. It's not the question to you per se, but anyone who wants to answer can answer. But yeah, you can answer. G,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Tato. you know what you're saying is actually really happening. Like, this is a reality, and there are many cases like that, especially here in SA. We also have a friend of ours who knew someone was in a similar situation. He was married, and this girl like came to her, told her what has been happening. The mother's boyfriend, has been sexually abusing her and all that. So she told this guy, and instead of him also helping him, he was having issues with his wife at home. He ended up taking advantage of this victim to the point that he separated with his wife and ended up taking this victim. So these cases are mostly they happen when it's a boyfriend to the mother, and especially when the mother depends upon him, which is why like now there is the issue of us encouraging people to be independent, especially women, because the moment you are dependent upon them, you have no voice, you have no say. You will justify sin because you need food on the table. But you, as a person who is watching from afar, you are not maybe part of that home, or you might be, and you are noticing all that is happening. You need to quickly report to the police, because to be honest, that child is suffering and they also have no voice. Because right now we are looking at two women who are victims of abuse. That mother who can't say because they are depending on that man, and the child who is experiencing that abuse. And the mother might also be experiencing the same abuse, but it has been extended, it's also being done to the other person, the child. So it's very important when we see such things, it's very important that we just report to the police or social workers, because then they will start, investigating to see. If you are not so sure, but if you have seen or you have heard that this is what is happening, just go to the police and report. Many are times the victims of abuse find it difficult to speak out for themselves. So you knowing that this is what is happening, you don't need to waste time, just go straight to report and leave the issues to the social workers, to the police. They will deal with it. I don't know if there's someone who has something to add on this one.
On the issue of social workers, I remember I heard that, because it was somebody whom I knew. When I heard that, I actually called one social worker that I knew, and then she just said, no, you need to, first of all, it was the issue of evidence. So that for me to go to the police, I'll need evidence. And also I need to be looking for, if for the girl must be willing to testify as well, you see. So by that time, but it was long back, by that time, the social worker that I spoke to never gave me a clear answer to exactly what to do, you see. So some of the social workers, they may not be even relevant, but like I get the point what you're saying, that we need to report to the social workers.
You go to the police straight. It's just so sad that our systems are so slow to take action, because in many cases there are people who go to police or to just report about the abuses being done to them. They take time, And sometimes they don't even, they just start by blaming you. You know, this victim blame that comes. You are doubted and all that. It's really, really sad. But then you don't, because this is happening doesn't mean you just have to be quiet. If it means going to another police station, do that. If it means even looking for the numbers of those who are at the higher positions, do that. If it means going on social media to just raise awareness, do that. I don't know if there's anyone who needs to add.
I guess this is how we are going to clash with society, because when we've got plenty of these mothers who know that their children are being abused, but because the man is the provider, they actually protect the man and sacrifice the children. I once had a case where 14, 13-year-old child was molested by a stepfather and she fell pregnant. And this happens a lot, like single mothers are in big problems unless they can be empowered. And that is
okay. Hello, G? Can you please repeat, because you were talking but there was no voice coming. We couldn't hear anything. Can you please repeat what you're saying?
Am I audible now?
Yes.
So I was saying that I guess this is how we are going to clash with society, because we are going to go into people's homes and try to save these vulnerable girls who are being protected. I mean, sorry, they are not being protected. Whose mothers are protecting their husbands. Because in many instances, those mothers, as you have said, are dependent upon those men. Their whole livelihood is wound up in that man. And that man is having sexual relationships with the woman and then with the daughter, the girl children. He's just helping himself to all these sources of pleasure. And the mothers, because they are dependent on this man, they will protect him and sacrifice the livelihood of the children, the girl children. And we see plenty of these cases in the hospital setup. And I was talking about a case that I once had of a 13-year-old or 14, who in fact fell pregnant by her stepfather. And the mother knew all along, but when the pregnancy was about 20 weeks is when she's bringing that child seeking for an abortion, and not really interested in giving us the background to the story. Didn't come to try and help that child. She just came to get rid of the pregnancy and then take that child back into that environment to continue being abused by that man. And the sin of sex that has victimized women for 6,000 years is now a sin that God wants to eradicate from his people. And he also wants to bring this awareness to the world, because other people have tried, the world has tried, feminism has tried to raise awareness to the fact that women are experiencing a grievous sin perpetrated by people who profess to be followers of God. It is a serious, serious matter. The moment we begin to treat it with the seriousness it deserves, the sooner God can use us. And may God help us for being ignorant. May God help us for participating in activities that victimize children, girl children, and women. May God forgive us for having internalized misogyny so that we can't even identify it. In society, women are the biggest defenders of men. We don't even have to be in a situation where a woman is being accused of not being respectful or answering back to her husband. It is because of gender inequality and men dominating women that they have been oppressed. The women are so oppressed that the world is looking at women as objects to be used. That is why, you know, I was reading an article this just yesterday about Korea. Korea is such a horribly sexist country. It's just one of the very worst. In terms of gender equality, you know, in terms of development, they are right there on the top. They are under they are within the top 10 most developed countries in the world. But when it comes to gender equality, they are right at the bottom. And the women in Korea, if you do a research and you look into the lives of Korean women, they are some of the worst on the planet, worse than some African countries, where women are under so much pressure. And you know, that kind of misogyny is not even easy to appreciate the degree of violence that it impacts on the women because it's a developed country. Just because it's a developed country, it makes the world overlook the harassment that women experience there, where women are under so much pressure in terms of looking beautiful, makeup, the fashion world, the makeup world, the plastic surgery world. Because Korea expects a woman to have spotless skin. There is no Korean woman, except the ones that are now protesting. Apparently, a Korean woman cannot leave the house without applying makeup. We know that this is a global move, but in Korea, it's especially special because it starts in primary school. Girls are taught by their mothers to apply makeup from primary school. That is why a woman, the first responsibility she has, even though Korea has one of the biggest, the greatest proportion of educated women. Apparently in Korea, more than 90% of girls have a university degree. And yet, there is so much misogyny that a woman who has a girl child, the very first responsibility, she can go and get all the degrees she wants, but if she's not married, is the biggest curse. She must just get married, find a protector, because that's how Korean society is built. Men protect women. If you're a woman without protection, it's probably because you are allowing yourself to go out with your spots exposed. So the Korean makeup industry is worth billions of dollars, just because the women are under so much pressure to dress up, to make up their faces and hide all the spots, and use plastic surgery to change any part of their body that is not aligning. They even have what they call the 9-1 formula, where the proportion of the head size must be, the proportion of the whole body must be 1 to 9. 1 is head, and then 9 is body. That they even measure how a woman needs to look. The proportion of the size of the head with when it's compared to the size of the body. There are specifications. Korean women even lighten their skin. Can you imagine? These people are already white, but they have to lighten their skin. They have to be as white as possible. They have to be as slim and slender as possible. They have to be spotless for the glory of Korea, so that they can satisfy their men. This deep inbuilt misogyny, God is awakening us to this madness. And so we as a people cannot afford to be ignorant about sexism and what we should be doing. When Tato is raising this question, the first thought in my head, because I still have deep-seated misogyny, is, the family. how is he going to deal with their family? Because definitely the family is going to rise up in protest, and they're going to accuse him of meddling in their business, because this is how abusers are protected. Stay away from my business. This is my husband. You have nothing to do with our home. They will even report you to the police that you are interfering in their own business. And I'm thinking, how on earth are we going to stand up for these vulnerable girls and vulnerable women if in the society in which we live? And I'm thinking, this is exactly how we are going to clash with society, because we're going to see these young girls being taken advantage of. Their mothers are protecting the abusers. Society is protecting the abusers. And then you have to go into that environment and say, enough is enough. I'm going to the police. And you're going to go to the police. The police is not even going to do you any good, by the way, because they need evidence. They need that child herself to report, because who are you reporting? Even the police system is not built to protect victims at all. And so I just wonder, when it's time for us to go to the Levites and the Nethinims, how this is really going to look like. And may God help us to prepare for it, because I don't think we are prepared.
Thank you, Jane. That's very true. Thank you.
Jean,
Yes, Tato.
Just to add on the point that Dee is raising up. That's why we are so pushed to the corner that we need to make use of our resources and come up with ways how best we can be able to provide for those who are vulnerable. Because of many a times we will be speaking, but then what? If the girl says, please take me out, then what? Are you going to be able to take them out? You see, so that we need to be able to use our finances to the best of our ability to assist the vulnerable. We understand and we see what is really happening. The police is failing us, meaning if the police is failing us, the state is actually going to fail us. So if the state is going to fail us, how are we going to be of help to those people who will be in need? So yeah, Hey, G.
Or Tato, even, you're talking about the girl that comes to you asking for help. What about the one that is afraid to even come and ask for help? How do we even help that one?
The thing, our homes, the places where we are actually staying, we need to have we need to come up with plans. I don't know how much plans we need to be making for something that we are just foreseeing that these are the scenarios that may occur, you see. So we really need to think deep if we say that we are radical feminists. If we are going against the society is going to turn against us. And then we need to be having places where we can be able to assist people, because of that will be the only place where they can be able to run to for to have a place to hide, because of many who end up in the street ending up selling their bodies. It's because of they have nowhere to run to. They see that as their only choice that they have to have an ends meet, you see. So yeah, I just want to raise that one as adding to what this saying. So because it's very critical.
Thank you, Tato. Is there anyone else who wants to add? Okay. So the last paragraph she wrote is saying, I remember something that I want to share. A woman I knew for all my life had been abused by her husband. She made excuses and hid the fact that he is abusive towards her, saying it is his job's fault. He was so under pressure. Let me tell you something. It is never ever the fault of someone or something if a man is abusive towards his wife. It was always there, hidden by him for her not to notice till the day come. Did you know that a lot of time that man blames the victim if he is caught out? Did you know that a lot of time that man blames the victim if he is caught out? She made me do it, or it is the stress that made me do it. Poor me. Remember this. They are great in manipulating people. That is what they do. Dominance and control is the name of their game. If they can let you think that it is someone else's fault, that they are like this, they would surely do it. For that is the anatomy of violence against women. The essence of it is control and dominance. So here she was just sharing of the woman that she knew who was being abused, and actually she was saying it wasn't his fault. She was just blaming the job or the work that he's been doing, which was putting pressure on him. So this like is happening. This is a reality. Even in this movement, I'm sure it's happening, where you can find victims standing up for abusers, trying to justify what has been done to them because there is something that caused it. So this is a reality. But like I said, where we are seeing this, where we are picking this need to educate each other more and more, and to just find ways to just enlighten whoever is in that situation, help them until they really see the abuse in its real essence, or in its way, so that one can just run for their life or come out of that situation. Because it's many times, you'll be told you're strong, you're like this, and you keep on like embracing abuse until you're finished, until you're broken, until to a point where you're just being controlled, like we've learned about the issue of objectification. You're just being treated like property. Like anytime he thinks of moving you to that corner, he can just easily do it, because you cannot stand in their way. But it's important for us to learn even to stand up for ourselves, stand up against abuse, stand up against abuse on behalf of others. Just be able to make sure we protect one another. We make sure it's a safe environment for all of us. That's where, being a brother's keeper, like that's how being a brother's keeper or loving your neighbor looks like. We just have to be watchmen on the walls of Zion. We have to be watching over anyone who is just around us to make sure they are safe from any sexual abuse or any form of abuse, and especially sexual abuse, especially women abuse, domestic violence, all this. And we need to take action, and it's very important that we continue encouraging one another to make sure women are equipped, women are independent, women are able to stand to provide for their families. Because the moment they are dependent upon their spouses, all these abuses will come into play. But when they are independent, they have a voice, and abuse will also be less. Remember, we are all equal. We have been created equal. No one should dominate the other partner. No one should be above the other spouse. So there is need for us to really work on ourselves. If there are problems, especially in the marriage setup, we really need to be able to look into ourselves. When we are being told we are being sexist with our wives, we just really need to humble ourselves, fall at the feet of our wives, ask for forgiveness where we're failing, and do the right thing. I don't know if there's anyone who has something to add before we close. So this is actually helping everyone. It's helping those who are married, those who are still courting, who are contemplating marriage. It's helping us all. It's helping anyone for now who might be single, who is not thinking about marriage. But what I know is this information, it can help someone tomorrow. So to just have a knowledge about all these things, it's actually beneficial to us. It's actually going to make us, if you were thinking of getting married, actually this study, it actually, like, you can sort of connect it to the other study that we had the other time on the youth talk, which is talking about you getting married because you have amazing sex, where we looked at the issue of sex being for married people, and where we have learned with that also there's just abuse that is found in that, where we can see that one, maybe through manipulation, as a woman you are made to engage into that act, and the man has to also stand his ground in avoiding any appearance of, of this. If you're not married, not to lead like your partner into it, or them. You need to help each other. You need to speak about these things, avoid them. When you're married, you engage in sex, and when you are now married, doesn't give you also the license to just abuse the other partner when they are not in agreement. So it's very important that we're learning about these things. They are so liberating to those who are in marriage. We just need to know that there is the issue of even some women are actually under a bondage with this act. So learning about it and putting it into practice, just know that you would have liberated your partner. And some spouses might not speak out because they fear you. They just go according to what the husband has said. We need to speak out. We need to stand up for our rights. We need to understand what's being done to us, that if I'm not ready for it, no one should force us into it. And it's one of the things that is also making some marriages to break up, where you find a spouse like not ready, and they just speak out, they just stand up for their rights to say, like, maybe I'm just not ready, like I don't feel like doing it now, or I'm not feeling well, I'm not ready for it, and then next thing you find the partner going out to look for someone, and at the end of the day you might find there's all these issues of divorce because of sex. So all these things we need like to really know about them, and just embrace the truth that the Lord has opened unto us. So thank you all for joining. Next week we'll be looking for the topic on the terrible reasons to get married. It's for religious reasons. For religious reasons. So this is what we'll be looking at next week. So if you can just go research on this one, then we can move forward easily. And then the other one which follows is because you think marriage is a cure all for your relationship. Maybe we might end up jumping into this one. So all right, thank you all for joining. Let us kneel down in prayer. Thank you, dear Lord, for all that we have learned. We continually ask for your guidance. Ask that you may lead us in all our daily duties, that we may be able also to just protect each other, or be able to see where some wrongs are being done to women, and be able to stand up for them, be able to make sure they are in a safe place or they are protected. Dear Lord, help us so that we don't continue to be ignorant, so that we love your truth, we live according to what it says. Forgive us, dear Lord, for not taking this message seriously, for being ignorant, for just not playing our party faithfully. There are many who are suffering abuses, yet we are here. We have all this knowledge that you have granted us, but we are failing them. May you please give us strength. We pray all this, asking that you may be with us the whole Sabbath. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm done, Tatong.